The shepherd boy lived in a small village nestled among rolling green hills. His job was simple. Every day he would lead the sheep to a vast pasture, let them graze, and make sure none wandered off. But despite the clear blue sky, the gentle breeze rustling through the trees, and the sheep peacefully munching on grass, he felt incredibly bored. Every morning, he took the sheep to the field, sat on a big rock, and watched the clouds drift by. They moved so slowly, as if time itself was stretching endlessly. There was no one to talk to, nothing new to discover, only the endless bleating of sheep echoing in the quiet countryside. He kicked a few pebbles, doodled meaningless shapes in the dirt, then lay back in the grass with a heavy sigh. This job was so dull. The villagers were always busy, harvesting crops, trading goods, building houses, while he sat here, day after day, just watching sheep. "I must be the most bored person in the world," he thought. He tried singing a few songs but quickly lost interest. He ran around the pasture, chasing butterflies, but that didn't last long either. He wished someone was there to talk to, or at least that something exciting would happen. Suddenly, an idea sparked in his mind. What if a wolf came? The whole village would come running. Something exciting would finally happen, and I wouldn't be bored anymore. The thought of the villagers panicking and rushing up the hill made him grin mischievously. He stood up, took a deep breath, and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Wolf! Wolf is coming!" And just like that, the prank began. As soon as the boy shouted, "Wolf! Wolf is coming!" his heart pounded with excitement. Standing on the hill, his eyes widened with anticipation, eagerly waiting for the villagers' reaction. In no time, he saw a flurry of movement in the distance. Farmers dropped their tools, shopkeepers abandoned their stalls, and everyone rushed toward him. A mischievous grin spread across his face. The once quiet pasture was now buzzing with energy. Men grabbed sticks, mothers hurried behind them, and even curious children followed along. Their faces were filled with determination, ready to defend against the ferocious wolf. The boy bit his lip to keep from laughing. As the villagers arrived, they frantically looked around, searching for the wolf he had warned about. But nothing, no wolf, just the sheep, peacefully grazing as if nothing had happened. And then he burst into laughter. His laughter echoed across the hill, while the villagers stood in confusion, slowly realizing they had been tricked. "Ha ha! You should have seen yourselves running!" The boy gasped between fits of laughter, clutching his stomach in delight. The farmers frowned, some looking annoyed, others shaking their heads in disappointment. One elderly man spoke sternly, "Boy, you shouldn't joke about something like this. Next time, no one will believe you." But the boy didn't care at all. He was still beaming with excitement as he watched the villagers head back to their work. His prank had been so much fun. It had been a long time since anything this amusing had happened. And so, the very next day, when boredom crept in again, the boy stood up, took a deep breath, and shouted, "Wolf! Wolf is here again!" Eagerly, he waited for the chaos to unfold once more. After the success of his first prank, the shepherd boy felt exhilarated, as if he had just discovered an endless source of fun. His days used to be dull and repetitive, but now, he knew exactly how to make things exciting. And so, just a few days later, with the sun barely rising above the hills, he took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Wolf! Wolf is coming! Hurry, everyone!" The moment he yelled, his heart pounded with anticipation. He knew exactly what was coming next. Panicked villagers rushing up the hill, their faces filled with urgency, ready to defend against the non-existent wolf. And just as he expected, in the distance, chaos unfolded beautifully. Farmers dropped everything, sweat dripping down their faces as they scrambled toward him. Mothers hurriedly gathered their children, dragging them along. A few young men, more eager than the rest, charged forward, gripping sickles and wooden clubs, prepared for battle. The boy tried to keep a straight face, but when he saw one of the farmers trip and tumble in his haste, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He burst into uncontrollable laughter. "Ha ha ha! You all fell for it again!" he shouted, tears forming in his eyes from laughing so hard. It felt incredible. His prank not only made the villagers run around in confusion, but also put him at the center of attention. But this time, the expressions on their faces were angrier than before. One farmer glared at him and said, "If you keep joking like this, when you really need help, no one will believe you." The boy kept laughing, but for a brief moment, he felt a tiny pang of doubt. Was this prank starting to go too far? But as the villagers turned and walked away, the thrill of excitement rushed back into him. "Next time, I'll shout even louder," he thought with a grin. This game was too much fun to stop now. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the rolling hills, the shepherd boy suddenly heard a strange noise in the distance. At first, he thought it was just the wind rustling through the grass. But then, a low, menacing growl echoed through the air. For a moment, his heart seemed to stop. He turned around, eyes wide with fear, and then he saw it. A real wolf. Its sharp, gleaming eyes locked onto him, its gray fur bristling with each slow, calculated step. Its fangs glistened in the fading sunlight, as if preparing to strike. A wave of panic surged through him. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was real. Wolf. A real wolf. "Help!" he screamed, his voice cracking with terror. He turned toward the village, expecting to see the farmers rushing toward him like before. But this time, no one came. He shouted louder, his voice filled with desperation. "Please, it's real. Help me." But all that answered him was silence. His legs began to shake. Cold sweat dripped down his back. He turned back to the wolf. It was getting closer. The sheep sensed the danger too, scattering in fear, but none of them could escape the predator's piercing gaze. The boy wanted to run, but his legs felt paralyzed. The sheer terror gripped him like a vice, squeezing the air from his lungs. No more laughter, no more fun, just pure, heart-pounding fear. He had been too careless, too caught up in his tricks to realize the consequences. And now, when true danger had arrived, he was all alone. No one believed him, no one was coming, and the wolf was ready to strike. The shepherd boy collapsed to the ground, his heart pounding in his chest. The fear still lingered, but now it was replaced by something even worse: deep regret. He had thought his pranks were just harmless fun, a way to pass the time during long, boring days of watching sheep. He never imagined they would lead to this. When the wolf attacked, when no one came to help, he finally understood the weight of his mistake. His eyes darted toward the distant village, where the farmers should have come running to save him. If only he hadn't fooled them over and over again. But now, no one believed him. Why should they? A tight lump formed in his throat. Memories of the villagers, exhausted, frustrated, turning away after his previous lies, flashed through his mind, and he realized he had brought this upon himself. If only I hadn't played those tricks, he thought, tears welling up in his eyes. If only he had understood that trust isn't a game. If only he had known that one lie could destroy everything, especially when he truly needed help. But now it was too late. He watched as the sheep scattered in terror, one by one falling victim to the wolf's relentless attack. This was his fault. If he hadn't lied, the villagers would have believed him. The flock could have been saved. He wanted to scream for help again, but what was the point? He knew no one would come. It was already too late. The story of the shepherd boy and the wolf is more than just a simple warning. It carries a deep lesson about trust. Once lost, it is incredibly difficult to regain. At first, the boy thought lying was just harmless fun, something that wouldn't have any serious consequences. He enjoyed the attention, watching the villagers rush up the hill in panic. But he didn't realize that every lie chipped away at their trust in him. He never considered the day when he would truly need their help. And when that day came, no one believed him anymore. They were too exhausted from being deceived over and over again. They couldn't tell the difference between truth and lies. And so, when the wolf finally appeared, the boy had to suffer the consequences of his own dishonesty. The lesson in this story is clear. Trust is precious, but also fragile. It takes a long time to build, but it can be destroyed in an instant. Once people lose faith in someone, earning it back becomes nearly impossible, even if that person is genuinely in need. In life, the same principle applies. If we constantly lie or deceive others, there will come a time when, no matter how desperate we are, no one will be willing to listen. Lies might bring short-term amusement, but the consequences can last a lifetime. The shepherd boy's story is a powerful reminder that honesty is the foundation of all relationships. Always tell the truth, because once trust is broken, the price to regain it can be far too high.